we need to talk about TradFi. Something extremely strange is happening with the NASDAQ, with NVIDIA, even with the Nikkei, the Japanese equivalent of the S&P. All of these are pumping right now. And my suspected reasons why is because the dollar index is falling. Now, when the dollar index falls, this is typically a very bullish sign for the stock market, which we are clearly seeing as the S&P is moving towards reaching a new all-time high, as we're seeing the NASDAQ printing TBO breakouts right at a Fibonacci extension level, as we're seeing NVIDIA pumping to new all-time highs, even printing a third TBO breakout in a row. And it's also rolling over into international markets. What is going on? Why are all of these TradFi charts pumping and Bitcoin is struggling to even get back up to resistance? All of that and more in today's video here on More Coin Bureau. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than the ones I've shared before because everything we're talking about is happening right now, but the concepts I'm sharing with you will roll over into the future. Pay attention to a couple of things. For one, I am not a licensed financial advisor. Number two, I'm a crypto guy. I like crypto. I like Bitcoin. I like a lot of those charts. So I've had to teach myself how to focus on all these TradFi charts in order to understand how they impact the crypto market. And if you ignore these major TradFi indices and charts, you are missing out on the big picture of what it means to be a real investor and trader. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is the tariff pause. If you guys remember, just a little bit ago, back in April, Trump talked about this 90-day tariff pause, which launched Bitcoin up to about 47%. It also launched the S&P from these lows way down here below 5,000 all the way up 24%. In 80 days, if we look at the NASDAQ, if we look at any of these charts, they've had some incredible rallies. Even other world markets were dramatically affected by all of the tariff fears. So what gives? What's the big deal about it? Well, the reality is that June 9th, next Wednesday, this is actually the 90-day tariff pause deadline. Now, markets are pumping right now towards the end of this deadline, which makes me believe that a lot of these countries believe that they're probably going to get an extension. The United States or Trump or the White House, whoever's going to call the shots, is going to say, we're going to keep pausing because we're reevaluating the situation, whatever they want to do to kick the can down the road. But the reality is that, yes, with a tariff deadline quickly approaching literally next week, as of the filming of this video, it's Friday, so we're looking at it happening in just 6 days, 5 days from now. It makes me wonder, okay, is this a pump before a major dump? What if Trump decides to change his mind? Now, the one thing that makes me not believe that that is happening, there's actually two things. And this is completely related to crypto, so stay tuned. You're going to see the connection in just a second. The first thing is the dollar index. Now, the US dollar index lets us know what the health and the wealth, the strength or the weakness of the dollar is looking like. And this has an incredible effect specifically on other currencies like the euro and like the yen. When we see the dollar plummeting here, that means that the euro is actually pumping. We can see that the euro from the beginning of this year is up roughly about 14%, which is not much in crypto terms, but for a currency, for a currency trading pair, that is a huge increase. And it's also had a negative effect on the yen. This is actually the inverse chart where we've seen the yen lose about 11%, and it continues to look pretty weak and bearish. So the thing about the dollar falling is that as it falls more, we're going to see other currencies increase in value. So we're leveling out the playing field, I guess you could say, but there is a relationship with the dollar falling and, of course, other currencies and those currency pairings. If the dollar is losing value and the euro is holding or it's increasing in value, there's going to be an inverse correlation. We're going to see it pump. If the yen strengthens against the dollar, then we're going to see this actually drop, because this is the way I like to interpret it, the way we're looking at it now. But this is actually how we would look at it in the same way with the euro. We're seeing JPY, USD, EUR, USD. So we should actually see the yen strengthen if the dollar continues to tumble. But it's not just the dollar that has my attention right now. What actually has my attention as well is gold. Gold, if you guys have been paying attention, especially during all of the tariff troubles, you notice what happened to gold. First off, there was a little bit of a pullback, but we saw gold absolutely skyrocket close up to $3,500. Now, reasons for this increase is probably also due to conflict and war and rumors of war, all that stuff. But the reality is that gold has been on a massive, massive run. And one thing that makes me believe that we're not going to be heading into any sort of uncertainty on July 9th, again, very, very soon, is because if there was more uncertainty about this approaching due date for these tariffs, I would expect gold to continue to move up higher. Why? Because when gold moves up, this is an expression of the market seeing that, okay, there's a lot of uncertainty happening in the world, whether it be geopolitical or financial. So usually what most investors do is to hedge their portfolios with gold. Gold is a great place to hedge your wealth because we've seen gold do extremely well. Yes, it's a slow runner, but it's also clear that since November 2022, up until the current day, gold is up 100%. Now, all of you that are like me in crypto, you're laughing because if we take the same measurement, again, from November 2022 up until the current day with Bitcoin, we have to zoom out a bit more. November 2022 is back over here. Here we go, November 2022. We're just going to say from here to here, Bitcoin's up 400%. So of course we know Bitcoin's going to perform even better. But here's the big question. If we have this upcoming tariff due date on the 9th, next week, and we see gold is reacting negatively, as in there's no real threat. If we see the dollar losing strength, as in there's no real threat, and we see the stock market reaching new all-time highs, ripping higher and higher, even showing signs that will break out, and even international Asian markets are breaking out, then why, oh why, is Bitcoin not pumping? For any of you that have been in this market for long enough, you should be aware of a couple of central figures in this market. For one, Michael Saylor and Michael Saylor's company Strategy, which has been renamed from MicroStrategy. They buy Bitcoin like it's going out of style. He's said many times in interviews that he often wakes up at night in terror, feeling like there's no more Bitcoin left to buy. He is literally going to keep buying it, and he will top blast every single time, buying the absolute top. You also get a world leader like Nayib Bukele. Nayib Bukele is the president of El Salvador, a very Bitcoin-friendly company. They're actually using volcanic energy to mine Bitcoin. The man continues to buy 1 Bitcoin a day. They've amassed over 2,000 Bitcoin, and they continue to mine it. Then we have all of this Genius Act, or this Genius Bill that Senator Lummis has been pushing really hard for stablecoin clarity and things like that in the United States. I'm saying all this because it's not for lack of bullish news that Bitcoin should be pumping. It really, in reality, if we were in the same place 4 years ago, Bitcoin would be up to $1 million. I'm exaggerating. But with all of this incredible news, with Strategy buying, Nayib Bukele buying, we see company adoption. We're seeing people coming out of the woodwork. We're seeing all this crazy stuff where people are putting Bitcoin on their ledger sheets for the company. And yet, the price is here. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very content with $107,000, namely because the bulk of my Bitcoin that I bought was back at around 20K. So I'm doing good. I'm up 4x. But again, knowing all this bullish stuff is happening, seeing all this bullish energy that is just exploding over here in TradFi, whether it's with the Dixie, whether it's with the S&P, whether it's with the NASDAQ, whether it's with NVIDIA, with the stock market continuing to pump more and more, even international markets, I just can't help but wonder what is going on with Bitcoin. If we see all of these risk-on assets, which NVIDIA would, I don't know, I guess you could argue that it's risk-off because it's so dependable, even though it's very volatile, like Bitcoin, but we should be expecting more capital to be flowing into cryptocurrency. And yet, we see other TradFi markets pumping higher. Now, I do expect capital to flow into crypto. I do expect the price of Bitcoin to appreciate much higher this year. Actually, my top target, believe it or not, is going to be somewhere around here, about $173,000, probably over here in November. Now, that's my personal take on it, and I have videos that talk about why I have this specific target. But all of that to say, we can have the most bullish news right now. We could even see the United States announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and Bitcoin might burp up to $110,000. Last thing I'm going to say about this. If you think about the world's money, especially equity markets, we think about the stock market, massive. Think about foreign exchange markets. Think about precious metals markets, the bond market. Bitcoin in comparison is a little blip in the entire thing. If you think about it, Bitcoin is almost like the word, like the letter T right here. If we're considering all the pixels in the screen right now, that's how big it is compared to everything else. So part of me is looking at price action, knowing everything that's happening that's bullish right now for TradFi, and I don't see anything happening for Bitcoin. I'm kind of scratching my head going, how long can market makers really keep the price suppressed? Because eventually we're going to see a big blow off top, hopefully up to $173,000 later this year. But we also have to be on the defense as well. There's short-term information that I've shared in the Coin Bureau trading channel, where I post most of my videos here for Coin Bureau that I'll link at the end of this video that you've got to watch. But the main thing to understand is that something fishy is happening, and I really want to see Bitcoin pump up higher. But part of me is wondering if there are powers that be that are suppressing the price of Bitcoin so they can continue to accumulate before something big happens. The last thing I'll say is that summer is typically a very slow period for cryptocurrency, namely Bitcoin. July is pretty good, but August and September are some of the worst possible months for crypto. Understand that before we get to that point, and you'll thank me later. Now, again, I really want you to watch this video. It's going to pop up right here. That's going to explain some short-term resistance levels that you've just got to pay attention to on the Coin Bureau trading channel. And let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. And until the next time, you know what to do. Stay awesome and stay in the green. Peace.